The Mass Media, Chapter 6. In this chapter, we are going to look at sociological perspectives on the media, the audience, the media's global reach, and social policy in the mass media. Mass media. So mass media is anything that you can use largely using technology in order to reach people. So that could be newspapers, it could be the internet, Facebook, TV, cable, live streaming, Netflix, all of that is part of the mass media. So new forms of mass media, which would be referring to social media, has led to changing people's viewing habits and listening habits. Cultural convergence is the flow of content across multiple media and the accompanying migration of media audiences. So you can think of Netflix. So Netflix has something for everybody, I want to say, for the most part. If not, they'll probably have it soon. There's been a lot of changes this year with Netflix, so it fits a lot more demographics and audiences of people. Also, Facebook Watch. So Facebook, of course, is an extreme thing in mass media. And with Facebook Watch, you can watch a variety of shows, or you can follow your favorite people. And then also people make money, especially when it comes to YouTube. From a functionalist perspective, media is here to entertain us, and that is the whole purpose of it. It also socializes us, so it tells us what is normal, what's not. It brings us into interaction with one another, and it tells us what we should care about. It also confers status, so it kind of gives importance to certain people or certain issues. It'll take one story or one person and sort of blow them up. So think of people going viral for a situation that other people might be experiencing also. And then it also promotes consumption. So it tells us what we should like, what we should listen to, what we should eat, what we should do, what we should look like. And it tells us what we need to go out and buy. And then as far as desensitizing and necrotic when it comes to media and being dysfunctional, basically it'll desensitize us to certain things like mass shootings. We know they are terrible, but it's not as traumatic as it was if you think of the Columbine shooting back then. Now it's something that happens, and we know it happens. We know it's going to continue to happen. Also with neighborhood shootings, we hear it all the time, especially on the news. Of course, they hyper focus on certain neighborhoods and don't tell about shootings in other types of neighborhoods, usually the ones with more money. But we hear about so many shootings that it's not really devastating news anymore. We become numb to it. Agent of socialization. So the next couple of slides kind of expound more on what I was saying in the previous slide. So increases social cohesion by presenting a common standardized view of culture through mass communication. Basically, the TV tells us what we should like, what we should not like, what's normal, what's abnormal. When it comes to norms, the media tells us what's normal and what's abnormal. It can glorify disapproved behavior. So some people believe the gun violence on TV and movies, car crashes, things like that, is leading to an increase in violence from our youth. And also with human sexuality. Back in the day, they wouldn't even show anybody go into a bathroom or even a toilet, or they wouldn't even show people sleep in the same bed. And now, of course, they show a lot of things. Conferral status, as I mentioned before, is when you single out one person out of thousands that has that same issue or situation and they become famous, they go viral. Hyperconsumption, promoting consumption, is when people buy things that they see on TV. So if you think about the 20/20 rule, if you see the same commercial 20 times within a short amount of time, then you are going to want to buy that product. You're going to think of that product later, and that could lead to hyperconsumerism. It also supports the economy. So we know the media makes money. It put out money for certain companies, and then it also tells us what we should do and what we shouldn't do. The dysfunction and the necrotizing effect is where we become numb to seeing the same things over and over and over. The fact that we're at war, mass shootings, things like that. The conflict perspective focuses on how the media exacerbates divisions of society in the world. So it'll show the same single story for a certain demographic of people, and it'll be a negative story. It'll emphasize and re-emphasize even stereotypes, things like that. It keeps people divided. It'll emphasize violence and negativity, all the bad things, all the harm that's being done by humans. And then there's gatekeeping, and that's how material must travel through a series of checkpoints before reaching the public. So you might see an ad that's offensive to you, but there are gatekeepers that checked and approved it. So it's part of the conflict perspective because it causes many issues. Media is monitored. So interest groups are monitor the media, and that's the companies that will track your searches, the location of your searches, and the demographics when it comes to your searches, so they know what to suggest to you. So if you're searching for a particular thing on Google or even speaking about it, then later on that story or something similar will pop up on your Facebook or in suggested searches. The government monitors our communications. The law allows for it. So they might track certain groups of people for certain reasons that are against the government, or that might be a threat to the government, or that might be spreading different types of knowledge that is anti-government. The FBI tracks people, things like that. They'll track a certain amount of words people say in a certain order, especially when it comes to terrorism and violence. And then also it's important for parents to monitor the children's media use. We know with YouTube, even if you're on a kid's channel, somehow it might go down a rabbit hole where it ends up on something else that you might not approve of. Dominant ideology, it constructs reality. So some people believe TV is reality. They believe what they see on TV, especially if they've never been around a certain group of people or a certain religious group. Then they'll believe that that group is completely the way the media has said, because that's their only experience with that. So the media tends to ignore the lives and ambitions of subordinate groups, and the media deals with dominant ideology. You might find little niches of like maybe a particular show for a group of people, but usually the dominant culture, the dominant society is what is depicted through the media. The digital divide. This is where low-income groups, racial and ethnic minorities, rural residents, people that are basically on the fringes of society, also people in developing countries, they have less access to technology, so they have less of a voice that's heard. They have less media directed towards them. When it comes to the feminist perspective, they agree with conflict theorists and that the media perpetuates stereotypes and misrepresents social reality. And I kind of think when it comes to the sexualization of certain groups of women, or even the submission of women in general, when it comes to dating, things like that, I think maybe some people get the wrong idea. They believe, like a male might believe it's okay to be aggressive because of what they see in the media. The woman usually gives in and she's happy and she falls in love, but in reality that's not typically what the average woman wants. But if that male hasn't had someone explain that to him or had enough experience, and all he knows is a stereotype he sees in the media, then he might fall into that. The interactionist perspective views mass media as social capital. So if you think of people that go viral, their voices being spread or their short stories being spread, and they also can make money from that. And we also can build social networks. When it comes to mass media, so you might have people that believe in the same political ideology on the same page, or people that love reading books, sharing information. So the internet connects us to one another. Some people feel like some of the issues that are coming up are new, but they're not really new. It's just that social media is connecting various groups of people, so now more people are hearing about it. The interactionist groups also believe that the media perpetuates negativity. The media, including the internet. So terrorist groups and extremist groups can spread their message. So when it comes to these mass shootings with domestic terrorism, a lot of the people will put it up on websites before it actually happens, but they won't really say where. And then when it comes to terrorist groups, they can find people and spread their ideology to other people who might become immersed in it. Pornography and abuse of minors. So there's the dark web and the dark nets, black web, all of that stuff. People will sell people on there. They'll sell organs. They'll sell drugs. Pornography. They'll abuse kids. They'll buy kids. They'll buy people as forms of slavery. And then ego casting. So there's personal management of media exposure to avoid messages people don't like. That could lead to a less tolerant society. And basically, when you do searches, the internet tracks that and it knows what you like, or what you're interested in, and it'll only show you that stuff. Whereas if you go to someone else's house or if you use their phone and do the same search, you'll find something different. When it comes to any media, it's very important to know who the audience is. But when it comes to mass media, they're going to have various groups that will comprise the audience. So they might be identifiable, and that comes from tracking our information or asking us to sign up with our emails or connect through our Facebook, because it has our demographics already listed on our Facebook for the most part. It could be a small group, it could be a larger group. It might be a bunch of people that you just don't know who they are. So it can be examined on the level of micro sociology and macro sociology. So on a small level, small group of people, a small area, maybe people in a certain state. And then macro sociology, you could look at it from a global standpoint. When it comes to marketing, if it's something that a lot of people buy, like if you think of Apple products, those products are spread all over the world, so that would be on a macro sociology level. And then a lot of the times the audiences don't know one another, so you might want to, or the mass media might want to spread a word that fits various types of people, but that doesn't always happen. So then people will say, oh, this show is only for this group of people, or this news station is only for this certain group of people. And that's because for one, it might be what they believe in, but also it's difficult to reach everybody and connect to everyone. The segmented audience is just like a particular niche. It's a particular group of people that the mass media is trying to target and market to. So you might see a prescription commercial for a particular group of people, like you think of HIV, AIDS, PrEP. So the medication for PrEP will be advertised to a particular group of people. Opinion leader. So it's somebody who might go viral. They might have their own fan page or Instagram where people follow and listen to them. So they might be more so speaking out to people, and people follow their page because they're entertained by them or they believe in what they're saying. And more people will participate online. They'll interact with those people. Not everyone, of course, but certain people. Like Facebook now has the badge for being a top fan if you comment or interact with a page a lot. So these audiences aren't necessarily passive, but they are slanted toward the person that they're following. The right to privacy when it comes to mass media. So you might be thinking, well, is any of our information protected? Yes and no. We give these apps, we give our phones, we give social media, our computers, our TVs, we give a lot of things permission and access to us. We don't read all of it. Even when you're updating an app, like you might have had certain permissions, and once you update it, it might change it back, revert to the original permissions where it could track your data to use it for sales and stuff, because these companies want to continuously make money, and we're basically giving them the information so they don't need to do surveys or anything anymore because they know exactly what we're interested in. So in some ways, you might be able to use a VPN, a private one, so that way people aren't tracking too much, or you can use like ghost mode or dark mode, depending on which internet browser that you're using. But I don't even believe all of that is completely encrypted, if that makes sense. So I guess we don't have too much privacy. So there's a threat to our privacy and freedom from crime and censorship. So some governments will censor what people can search for. They'll censor which websites people can go to. And then there's crime. Well, people can hack into your stuff. So there's been a lot of talk of net neutrality and things like that. So if you have maybe Time Warner or what other internet services big out here in Kentucky, I can't really think of it right now, but any company you might have, not Time Warner, it's Spectrum now. So basically, if Spectrum doesn't like a certain company or website, they can block you from being able to search that particular topic or website, or they can make it really, really slow, so where you just don't want to visit that site. So that's what net neutrality and the issue has to deal with. So net neutrality says they can't do that. So if, you know, net neutrality is completely gone, then they can start doing that if they choose to. And no, they wouldn't have to announce it. But companies continuously use cookies and they track us. So now they have to tell you. So when you go to particular websites, it'll tell you, oh, we use cookies, blah, blah, blah. And we usually just press OK because we're trying to get to what we're trying to get to. So we're continuously giving them access to us. Social policy and mass media, the right to policy. So initiating policy, we've had the Electronic Communications Act of 1986, which outlawed surveillance of phone calls without the permission of a U.S. Attorney General and federal judge. However, the Patriot Act of 2001 relaxed some of these legal checks on surveillance by law enforcement officials, but also companies and other people are able to track internet searches, things like that. If someone's really good with the internet or good with hacking or good with computers, they can find a back door into tracking what someone is doing or viewing or interested in. So when it comes to court cases, it hasn't really been tested when it comes to most online monitoring, but people are still less vigilant about their privacy. We want to post things about us. We post our pictures. We give phones and Facebook and things like that access to our facial recognition. We've used our thumbs as far as scanning when it comes into phones and things like that. So a lot of our information is already out there, unless you are somebody who is not really on the internet, because there are plenty of people like that who keep it to a minimum. They might just use it for homework, or they don't have social media. Their information, of course, is less tracked than those of us who go live or post where we're at or tag places and people. Basically, we're giving out a lot of information, and it's up to you if it worries you or not. And then weblining is monitoring online activities for negative personal information. So someone might stalk somebody. It's pretty easy to do that too online. You can just Google them and do background checks. All of that. Of course, a private detective could do more of that, or somebody that has access to military grade information as far as electronics, but weblining is part of the negative personal information.